The Honourable Judith Collins.
Speaker, thanks for the opportunity to speak in to the Prime Minister's excellent statement to Parliament. And can I say how lovely it is that the Labour Party and the New Zealand First love me now? I never knew they loved me. And I understand that after they've finished asking John Tamahiri to rejoin Labour, they're going to ask me to join Labour, because despite having been brought up Labour, I was never silly enough to actually join it. So I think they're going to ask me to, because they now love me. And they love me because they're always wanting to talk about the new numbers announced by the Prime Minister on the police numbers. And yes, it is true, I worked for 6 months negotiating and all these sorts of things that you do and getting it right. And I'm very happy to see this followed through by the Honourable Paula Bennett as Minister of Police and Deputy Prime Minister. And of course, I'm also interested to see that Mr Greg O'Connor wants to stand against my good friend Peter Dunn in Oharu in some sort of very dirty deal with the Greens. And just because I'm wearing my lovely green jacket today doesn't mean to say I've come over to the Greens. But anyway, I thought that was interesting, because I well remember Mr Greg O'Connor, when I was Minister of Police just before Christmas, sometimes saying to me, burglaries don't matter. Now, I don't know if that is the new Labour Party official view, but I recall him telling me that as I had made some very public statements about burglaries and the police actually attending them and therefore hopefully solving them. It's very hard to solve burglaries, Mr McIndoe, if you don't attend. Anyway, or even get the evidence. And so, no, Mr O'Connor told me that. So I'm really looking forward to the Honourable Peter Dunn asking some questions around that, because I think that is something that the public needs to know. Do burglaries matter or not? Well, actually they do. And I don't believe for a moment that Stuart Nash, the Labour spokesman on police, thinks that burglaries don't matter, because I think he believes that they do. So actually, in fact, apparently they don't matter. So I think Ms Moroney thinks they don't matter, but I certainly think they do. Now, anyway, I want to talk about some of my portfolios and some of the stuff we're going to do this year. So let's look at tax. I think tax is a very interesting field, and I also understand that I got a lot of sympathy for having the revenue portfolio. Well, I love revenue. I love tax. I'm one of the few people who actually gets excited about tax policy and the implementation of it. What's that? Me, Mr Bailey. Well, of course, Mr Bailey is a very sensible person. Well, actually, tax is so important because it pays for all the money that we get to dish out and hand out. It's what's paying, other than, of course, the levies on petrol. And what it really does is it actually means that we can pay people who need additional income support that support. We can pay for education. We can pay for hospitals. And if the tax system doesn't work well, then we won't be able to do that. So it's really important that that does. So in the tax area, we're actually going to deal with some loopholes and some of the actions that have been around some of the multinational companies and also some New Zealand-based companies, where some actions would be, I think, very much classed as tax avoidance, but which are not strictly illegal at the moment, but I hope soon will be. And I'll make some announcements of that very soon. Can I also talk a little bit about energy and resources? Well, this is a great area. I mean, petroleum is fantastic, and I just want the Greens to get all up on their hind legs and tell me that they're not. But, you know, most of us are wearing them, by the way. Well, women are anyway, mostly. And that's because all of the synthetic fabrics that we wear come out of oil, petroleum. Oil has been our #1 export to Australia for about 20 years. And it even surpassed people, I have to say. In these days, it still is. And people in New Zealand don't know that. We have 17 recognised oil fields, and we're using 1. And the oil prices have been rising, so there's going to be some more announcements about opportunities there as well. And before people get too upset, and this is all happening, these dreadful things, I suggest that they not be hypocritical about these issues, because actually most of us use oil products every day. In fact, most of us use them most of the time. And, well, plastic, for instance, well, let's have a look. Look at some of the materials that are made out of them. out of them. Polyester, acrylic, nylon, rayon, acetate, spandex. So all those men in your lycra that insist on biking on your bikes in front of me driving my vehicle, we are wearing oil, latex, all on Kevlar, just some of them. There's also all sorts of things made out of them, like your sunglasses, your reading glasses, my contact lenses. All these things are made out of, guess what, oil. So before people get all worried about various things around oil and synthetic products, actually that's how we live these days. Our mobile phones are made out of oil. So I actually think we need to be very sensible about the opportunities available in New Zealand. We are an extremely wealthy country when it comes to our resources and our energy. And we look at energy, we've got 84% of our energy that we use in terms of our electricity is from renewables. We are a very unusual and very lucky country. That has been brought about by the hydro dams of the big, the 1960s and 70s, the big projects. That is something that you wouldn't be able to do today, by the way, under the current RMA, and I'm very much in favour of the reforms that the Honourable Nick Smith wants to put through. And actually, when you look at roading, for instance, roading is an area where we are very much committed to doing better with, particularly around the use of the road user charges and around the Land Transport Fund, and I'm really pleased that we've got more action happening there as well. It is one of the big issues in my electorate, is roading, and the big issue is really around the Southern Motorway and the lack of resilience around that. So I'm really pleased that we've got $282 million a couple of budgets back to get that widened, and it's already ongoing, and it will be hopefully one side of it will be opened up this year. But when we look as well at the ethnic communities, another of my portfolios, very important to us. Labor don't care about ethnic communities. They lost interest, and they lost the interest of many ethnic communities when they decided that they didn't like people who had funny surnames. And actually, how bad is that? So I'm very, very happy to have the assistance of Melissa Lee, MP, Parliamentary Private Secretary, and also Dr Jan Young, MP, Parliamentary Secretary, in this area. We cover an awful lot of events, a huge amount, and we've just had a month of Chinese New Year. I have to say about 2 people from the Labor Party turned up, one to get his name acknowledged and then he left, but he's not, Mr Grant Robertson, I should not be picking on him like that. And I do apologise for being so uncharitable. But actually, we are very much committed to these communities as well as part of New Zealand. And one of the reasons for that is we are a country of immigrants. We've all come here, or our families have come here, whether it was 1,000 years ago, 200 years ago, or actually last year. And we cannot put up the drawbridge and say, oh yeah, we don't want anyone new coming in. We used to lose 40,000 people a year to Australia. Under this government, that stopped. We're actually getting more Australians coming here. And actually, that's okay. We shouldn't be mean about that, because they're seeing that we are such a fabulous country to live in and a really good government to work under. And actually, that's what's raising the population, that and the fact that we are, in fact, a place where people want to come and to migrate to and be part of. And we're very fortunate in New Zealand. We don't have to put up fences. We don't have to put up borders. We've got ocean. But it's not the only thing that we have. We also have a very decent system of immigration, of point system. We look at family reunification, and we actually, and it's right for Mr O'Reilly to say far too many. What I'd say to Mr O'Reilly is, actually, where did he come from? Where did he come from? And he might say Christchurch. And I'd say, actually, it's not actually a country. But actually, everybody came from somewhere. I'm very proud to be part of a political party that acknowledges that New Zealand was not born and created and finished on one day. We actually are a country that's evolving. We are a country that is changing, and normally for the best. And I'd like to say that it would be great to see the Labor Party come back to that point of view, rather than to go down those nasty nasty little attacks on people based on their surname. And I know that under Stuart Nash, they would never have done that, because he would have thought back to his grandfather, who would never have done that either.